Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take that pile of sources you've got and, well, we try to boil it down to the really essential stuff. Today, we're diving into something that honestly affects all of us, whether we think about it much or not. Administrative ethics and non-government ethics too. Now, ethics might sound a bit dry, maybe academic, but as we unpack this, you'll see how these ideas shape, well, everything. How safe the roads are, how we get healthcare, you name it. Our goal here is simple. Cut through the jargon, give you a shortcut to understanding what guides our public servants, what drives nonprofits, and, how they both aim for the common good.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is how these frameworks are kind of the unseen guardians of the public interest. We'll be looking at the principles behind fairness, justice, but also getting into the weeds a bit, the challenges that pop up, and how different groups try to do the right thing for society.
Okay, let's kick off with the first big one, administrative ethics. So basically, this is the moral compass for government workers, right? The rules they follow doing their jobs.
Exactly. It's the foundation for responsible government. It spells out how public officials should act, think transparency, accountability, fairness. The whole point is to build public trust, make sure the government is genuinely serving the people's best interests, not just, going through the motions.
And a huge part of that is impartiality, isn't it? Like, officials have to treat everyone the same, make decisions based on facts, not who someone is or who they know.
Absolutely fundamental. That impartiality, treating everyone equally, it's core to a just society. But, and this is where it gets really interesting from the sources, even with clear rules, public servants run into some seriously tough ethical spots, dilemmas.
Okay, tell us more about that. What kind of tricky situations are we talking about?
Well, one, the sources highlight is this role-playing dilemma. See, administrative work is getting more professional, more specialized. So you might have a situation where, say, a planner, looking at the regulations, says, yep, this project ticks all the boxes. Professionally, it's sound, but the public, they might hate it. Maybe environmental worries, maybe it changes the neighborhood feel. So the official is caught between their professional code and what the community wants. Plus, they might have their own professional ethics, like an engineer's ethics that adds another layer to their administrative duties. It's a balancing act.
Wow, yeah. So it's a real clash of values sometimes. What about when personal gain creeps into the picture?
That brings us to another one. Tough choices. Or maybe the clearer issue of pretending public interest for private gain, what we usually call conflict of interest. This is where personal interest could, improperly sway official decisions. It's not always obvious bribes either. It could be subtle stuff, using your position to help a relative's business. Maybe taking a side gig that uses your public status, accepting gifts that aren't huge, but, well, they create an obligation. Anything like that just chips away at public trust, seriously erodes it.
Definitely sounds like a problem. So how do ethical systems try to ensure fairness then, especially when things get murky?
Right. That leads to this principle of step aside for fairness. Recusal, basically. To keep things impartial, and just as importantly, to look impartial, public servants have to step away from decisions where they or their family have a personal stake. Like if your spouse's company is applying for a government grant you're involved in reviewing, you absolutely have to recuse yourself, no question. It's about avoiding even the appearance of impropriety.
Okay, that makes sense for the big conflicts. But the sources also mentioned other tricky details. I imagine there are lots of smaller, everyday, ethical gray areas, too.
Absolutely. Think about gifts and hospitality. Where's the line? A coffee? Lunch? Tickets to a game, it gets fuzzy fast. Or defining personal rights versus official duties. What can you say publicly as a private citizen versus as a government employee? Administrative neutrality is key there. Then there's loyalty. Who do you owe it to?
Yeah.
Your boss, the agency, the public. What about disclosing personal assets? Handling confidential info, preventing internal screw-ups, and defining what is the actual public interest. It's not always simple. Plus employee rights, complaint channels, dealing with lobbyists, the list goes on. These are daily challenges.
Let's try and make this concrete. The sources brought up the national health insurance system. How does that fit into administrative ethics?
Well, that's a great example of a huge ethical question for government. Should the state guarantee health care for everyone, even if they can't pay? Or is health purely individual responsibility? And then you get into debates about things like moral hazard, this idea that, if people are fully insured against everything, maybe they take more risks with their health. It's a complex trade-off.
And another example you often hear, the financial crisis bailouts. Should taxpayer money be used to save private banks?
Exactly. That pits fairness to the taxpayers, who didn't cause the mess, against the idea of overall societal welfare preventing a total economic meltdown. It's a classic, really difficult ethical choice.
Is it right to use public funds like that, even if the alternative seems much worse for everyone?
So when we look at all these government decisions, all the complexities, what's the most important takeaway for us, for the public? Well, look, government stuff is messy, politics are complex, and figuring out why someone did something is hard. But I think the most crucial thing is that government actions should align with those big principles: fairness, justice, integrity. Even if a decision doesn't directly benefit us personally, we need systems, strong oversight, transparency, clear values, and yeah, us getting involved to push government towards meeting public expectations and promoting fairness for everyone.
Okay, let's switch gears now. Let's talk about the non-government side, non-government ethics. What are we talking about here, and what do these organizations actually do?
Right. So non-government ethics are the moral standards for NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Think charities, foundations, advocacy groups. These groups are honestly a huge force for social change. They often work towards a fairer world, sometimes partnering with governments, sometimes with businesses, sometimes challenging them.
So they're involved in empowering communities, working across borders, pushing for global change.
Exactly that. They step in to provide services, maybe where governments can't or won't. They tackle social injustice, they promote sustainable development, and yeah, many are global. They pool resources, share expertise, and tackle huge issues: human rights, environment, global health, international development. They really foster cooperation between nations.
The sources mention some big international players here as examples.
Yeah, definitely. Organizations like the World Bank, its goal is poverty reduction, better governance. The Red Cross humanitarian aid, medical help in crises. The UN, obviously, promoting peace, human rights, tackling global challenges. And the World Health Organization, the WHO, aiming for better global health, disease prevention. All of them operate with strong ethical missions at their core.
Now, this is where things get really complex, and it shows how tangled global ethics can become. The source brings up Taiwan's situation with the World Health Organization.
Right. That case really throws a spotlight on the ethical dilemmas in international relations. You've got political issues clashing head-on with what many see as a fundamental right: healthcare access for everyone. It exposes, the power imbalances between countries and raises serious questions about whether everyone truly gets equal access to global health resources. The sources frame it as a major conflict of values politics versus universal health principles.
So beyond these huge geopolitical issues, what's the core role of NGOs, and what ethical tightropes do they walk day to day?
Well, beyond just delivering aid or services, they're often crucial advocates. They give a voice to people who might not otherwise be heard. But yeah, they face tricky ethical issues too, like ensuring they're truly working with local communities, not imposing solutions from outside, avoiding that whole savior complex thing. That's a constant challenge. And funding, balancing the need for money with staying true to their mission. What if a donor has values that clash with the NGOs? Or the money comes with strings attached? Being transparent about where money goes, avoiding mission creep, where they start doing things outside their original purpose just because funding is available. These are big ethical tests for NGOs.
Okay, let's wrap things up by comparing administrative ethics for government with business ethics. What's similar between them?
Well, at a basic level, both need clear ethical guidelines. They need rules for moral conduct to maintain trust. Both also need organizational responsibility and transparency. They're both accountable, just maybe to different groups. Government to the public, business more to customers and shareholders, but increasingly the public too. And ideally, both should aim to serve the wider public interest in some way, not just pure self-interest or profit.
Okay, so some common ground, but how do they differ in practice?
There are some key differences. First, who they serve. Government ethics has to consider the entire public, all citizens, with all their competing needs. Business ethics tends to focus more narrowly on customers, maybe shareholders. Second, the type of power involved. Government wields public authority laws, regulations, enforcement. That demands really strict ethical controls to prevent abuse. Business ethics operates more within the market. Consumer choice, reputation, competition, these act as checks, though regulation plays a part too, of course.
And how they judge success must be different too, right?
That's the third big one. Performance evaluation. Government ethics isn't just about efficiency. Fairness, justice, equity. These have to be paramount, even if they're harder to measure than, say, budget savings. Business ethics, traditionally, it's been about the bottom line, financial performance. Though that's changing. More businesses are now looking at social and environmental impact, too, which is good.
Now, this part I found really interesting. The idea of a business like government. What can government actually learn from the private sector? ethically.
It's an interesting idea. Government can definitely learn about efficiency, maybe innovation from business, streamlining how things get done, using technology better, fostering improvement. But, and this is crucial, it has to be applied carefully, always keeping that public interest mission front and center. It's not just about cutting costs.
So things like a customer-centric approach, but for citizens.
Exactly. Thinking about the citizen's experience. Just like a good business focuses on its customers, government can focus on making services responsive, easy to use, and actually meeting people's needs, listening and adapting.
And empowering the people who work in government.
Yeah, that too. Businesses often talk about empowering employees. Government can do that by encouraging collaboration, letting people take initiative, fostering creativity. When public servants feel engaged and trusted, they usually deliver better services.
So putting it together, business ethics is about stakeholder relationships, customer focus, maybe more risk tolerance, participation. For government, being businesslike might mean having a clear service vision that balances everyone's interest, really focusing on citizens, maybe decentralizing some power, encouraging participation, and getting different departments to work together better.
Precisely. And crucially, judging government performance needs to be about the long-term benefits for society, the common good, not just hitting short-term targets that might miss the bigger picture.
So, after all this, what does it really mean for you, the listener?
Well, I think this dive into administrative and non-government ethics shows these aren't just, abstract ideas for academics. They're absolutely fundamental. They're the bedrock of a fair society, and they genuinely affect our daily lives, how well our communities work, even how nations interact.
Yeah, whether you work in government or volunteer for a nonprofit, or you're just interacting with these institutions as a citizen, understanding these ethical ground rules is pretty important. It helps us know what to expect, how to hold them accountable, and maybe how to push for things to be better.
Which brings up a final thought, maybe a question to ponder. Given how complex all this is, the dilemmas, the tensions we talked about, how can each of us, in our own lives, our own work, our own communities, best contribute to upholding these ethical standards?
Yeah.
How can we help build and maintain that trust in both government and NGOs?
Definitely something to think about after this deep dive wraps up. Thanks so much for joining us on the deep dive.